Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel, Homeopathy Super Sessions by Dr. Jagos. Today we'll be doing Robert's chapter 27. That's a continuation of the syphilitic stigma. Well, it has been said that the patient afflicted with the syphilitic trait suffers from structural changes. Yet the emotional sphere in the purely syphilitic patient is not seriously affected. So, whenever the patient is suffering from the syphilitic state, there will definitely occur structural changes. But on the mental level, on the emotional sphere level, it is not seriously affected. For this reason, we find less subjective symptoms. So for this reason, we find the subjective symptoms are less. Supersensitiveness is also present to a lesser degree, which includes lesser desires, cravings, and longings than in the psoric patient. The syphilitic patient usually actually suffers much less than the psoric, as the mental sphere has not been so much invaded. So remember that in the syphilitic patient suffers much less on the mental sphere because it has not been so much invaded. The syphilitic stigma is not so thoroughly established as the psoric, which is transmitted from generation to generation. So the reason is what? That the psoric miasm is transmitted from generation to generation, and it is not so with the syphilitic patient. Hence, we have a better chance to eradicate the syphilitic dyscrasia as compared to the psoric. So since the psora passes from one generation to another generation, it becomes difficult to eradicate psora, and in comparison, the syphilitic miasm or the dyscrasia is simple to treat. This is because the psoric miasm is deep-rooted in the very essence of the man's spirit. Thus, different stigmata shows respective characters. The psoric itches and appears unclean, unwashed. So in the psoric, the skin is there. It constantly, the patient is constantly itching, and unclean, unwashed appears, the skin is there. In syphilitic, ulcerates and the bony structure is changed, and psychotic infiltrates and is corroded by the discharge. So these are the different stigmas which shows its characteristic features. For example, psora, itching, unhealthy skin, unwashed skin, and syphilitic, ulceration, and bony structures also involved, and psychotic, infiltration, and discharges. Psora is the stigma which shows little on the side of objective symptoms. Its expression itself through the mental and emotional reaction. So in psora, you will get less objective symptoms, but more of subjective symptoms on the mental and the emotional sphere. For this reason, the patient of a tubercular diathesis is reflected many subjective symptoms in comparison with the purely syphilitic. So if you see the tubercular diathesis, a combination of psora and syphilis. So you will get many subjective symptoms as compared only with the pure syphilitic. So because psora will show little objective symptoms and more of the symptoms on the mental and the emotional plane. That is why in the tubercular diathesis, which is a combination of the psora and the syphilitic symptoms, we get many subjective symptoms as compared to only a pure syphilitic miasm. Syphilis alone has a few cravings in the way of food. If you compare the state with the tubercular craving, you will get unsatisfied hunger, the craving for meat and potatoes when nothing else will satisfy. Craving for salt, indigestible things, inability to assimilate much starch. This reflects the psoric part of the tubercular diathesis. So here also, since the tubercular diathesis combines psora and syphilis, you are getting these peculiar cravings. In the syphilitic psoric type, we find the changes in the chest wall due to structural change in the bony contours. So the syphilitic psoric type, that is the tubercular miasm, you get the structural changes in the bony contours. The chest wall is narrow and shallow. Even the action of the diaphragm is limited. There may be no structural changes in the lung itself. There is less air capacity and less residual air in the lung. So different types of chest deformity you'll get, like the funnel-shaped chest, barrel-shaped chest, wing-shaped chest, etc. The very structural changes eventually bring out occlusion of the S cells. The pumping power is so cramped that they're incapable of supplying sufficient oxygen for the body needs and are very poor breathers, and they become anemic also. In the tubular diathesis, there will be a deep hoarse cough, which is brought about on the least exposure to the cold. As you all know, the tubercular diathesis, the slightest exposure to cold air will activate the cough. This will be repeated many times before the actual development of tuberculosis. So this cough will go on coming many times before the patient actually develops tuberculosis. The purely syphilitic patient has a short barking cough. This is sometimes true of the early tubercular stage. So a short barking cough is a precursor that the tubercular stage will then develop. The tubercular expectoration is purulent, greenish yellow, often offensive, usually sweetish or salty to taste. We can usually depend upon the salty or sweetish taste as being a characteristic of the dyscrasia. So that's all. Part 2 will be coming up soon. Do like, comment, and share if you like my educational videos. Thank you.